Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to the episode of my F1 2020 My Team Career Mode, episode number 99 today for round number 1 of Season 6. If you guys did miss the previous video uploaded yesterday, the pre-season video to this one, then be sure to go check that one out, because that will explain everything in preparation for this series upcoming. You know, the livery that we've got on, the team setup, where we are R&D wise, the different kind of driver transfers, what the cars are looking like for this season, etc, etc. But we're going to get into this one, but I need to say a massive thank you to you guys for response on that. I'm blown away. The amount of views that got in like 16 hours was unreal. The love and support in the comments, the likes, awesome stuff for Season 6 of a career mode series. It was just insane to me, so thank you very much for that. And of course, you know, those of you who are with me in the UK, of course, we've gone back into a full lockdown. Hopefully, a series like this and the other videos that I'll be making in the upcoming weeks, of course, can hopefully entertain you guys and keep me busy as well through these days. But we'll get through it. But let's get into Season 6. We have some important stuff to go through, though, before we actually even get to the race weekend, which is at the Bahrain Grand Prix for this season. After 6 seasons, we still actually do have some HQ facilities to upgrade, and since we have a lot of money, over 100 million now in the bank, of course, we've hardly had to spend any money on much, really, in the last 2-3. I think the last time we made an HQ upgrade, I think it may have been Season 4, I think, when we went bankrupt, of course, and we were trying to rapidly rescale the team. So we're going to go ahead and purchase the kind of final few upgrades on fabrication and build time for the chassis, aero, and engine. That's going to allow us to be even quicker. We're trying to springboard back. Obviously, we have an R&D regulation change. We now find ourselves a little bit down the order. Of course, the field spread is so tiny that I still think it's going to be a very close fight. I think we can still get some really good positions in the first few races. With that, with HQ upgrades, we're also going to make some actual tangible R&D upgrades as well. You can see we're going to purchase a few of the minor upgrades on either side of the tree for the engine and the chassis. Of course, aero, that did not get reset, so we're maxed out. We're actually the best team on the grid for aero, which is going to be interesting, I think, in terms of, I don't know how the car is going to feel, genuinely, like, because the car is going to be so good still in the corners when it comes to pure downforce, but the car is going to be a little bit heavy, maybe not as good under braking or acceleration, and also the engine may not fully be there in terms of the power, but that actually might help us in terms of traction, kind of almost like back, if you think back to the McLaren Honda days, when the car was so underpowered, it meant that the car was so stable on the rear end. So it's going to be a bit of a weird one, you know, having engine and chassis, it's a very odd combo to get reset, so it's going to be intriguing to see how we adapt to it in the first few races. I think it's definitely going to be a bit of a learning curve of getting used to this car, very much like we had to learn how to drive the Season 4 car when our aerodynamics got reset. This will be a whole different kettle of fish in terms of having to learn that, but yeah, doing some upgrades, the most we can do with the R&D points we have, and obviously we can only do 3 upgrades per facility, so we're trying to max that out, and I think a lot of those upgrades will actually come in time for next episode, the Dutch Grand Prix, for race number 2, and of course, which is very importantly, our 100th race as aarava Archer Racing, so we want to try and do well at Zandvoort, but obviously that's then. This is now round number 1, still got to do it, and we want to try and kick off the season in the best way possible. So we're going to dive into the race weekend then in Q1, and this will be the first time even I get to really experience this new Vodafone Mercedes chrome silver and red livery out on track under the floodlights of Bahrain with a lighting system. I just want to point out before anyone maybe says it, it is a little bit different to the actual true chrome silver of the McLaren Vodafone car you may see. Obviously, you guys can play with that car in your game as well. They've got the classic cars, obviously, from 2010 and 2008. Because of the way the My Team livery works with the actual modding and that kind of layers of the way the light bounces off the kind of paint on the My Team car, the lighting's a little bit different, so it is chrome silver, but at times, under floodlights at least, in night races, the chrome is not as chrome as maybe I would personally like it, maybe you would like it. On the daytime, it seems a lot better, a lot more shinier, so I just wanted to kind of point that out, nip that in the bud before anyone kind of goes crazy in the comments over that. Basically, it's the best we can basically do with what's available to us with the modding with My Team and the FOM car. But anyway, on with our actual Q1 performance across the line, ahead of Lewis Hamilton then, obviously our brand new teammate, looking to see if we can revive him this season maybe, but at the moment we do get through into Q2, that's fine, but it is a little bit slow. We're P14 and 15. Now, to be fair, even in last season's car, which was one of the best cars on the grid, I would come 14th place sometimes in Q1 because I'm always very slow in Q1 and I speed up in Q2 and Q3, kind of almost like how you want a racing driver to be. But usually my teammates all the way up the top, you know, so it's a little bit of a worry to see Hamilton down there in P15. Kind of half for our car and half also for, is this already confirming to us that the Lewis Hamilton we've signed is very much going to be the same out of form, you know, very bad Lewis Hamilton that we've seen for the last 3 seasons in this career mode series. You know, ever since, if you haven't followed along with the series, to fill you in, ever since season 2, Hamilton had so much bad luck in season 3, and then he's just been so poor and just not driving at his best potential in seasons 4 and 5. And I genuinely think that the game, there's something in the coding that's just honestly decided that it is just time for Hamilton to have that point in his career where he's just woeful and he's seeing out his days until he retires. And the flip side of that is you've got other drivers like, you know, Pierre Gasly or Giovinazzi doing very well in a few races last season. Obviously, Gasly consistently over seasons 4 and 5, as well as Verstappen, of course. So it's kind of nice to see the game's got that kind of underlying coding, we'd see maybe for the AI to, you know, dip in form and permanently maybe, you know, be in bad form and good form. And it kind of changes up, obviously, because maybe in some of your guys' career mode, Hamilton's still dominating, whereas in ours, I've been very, very lucky, actually, that it's not the case. But it means now that we sign him as a teammate, it's going to be a big old challenge because, you know, if he's not performing, as I said many times in the pre-season video, we are just going to be a one-man team a la kind of Verstappen and Red Bull in the last 2 years, which is going to be a challenge to really take the fight to other teams. But anyway, getting away from that tangent and back to the actual on-track performances. So Q2 has been underway. You would have seen as I was talking about all that, we did that first flying lap. Now we're outside the top 10. Now I think I can go quicker. There is some time there to find, about maybe a few tenths. So I'm confident we can do a better time. It's about really how others do. At the moment, Hamilton is slower than me in P13, so I have a hunch that he's going to get knocked out. But can we get through into the top 10 shootout? Just showing, you know, 1 season difference, R&D regulation change. It's so tight. You know, we're talking a few tenths here, and I could be into Q3 or out of Q3, whereas last season we had one of the best cars on the grid. So it's all change here. It's new, it's exciting, but let's see what we can do. We've gained nearly 4 tenths, a lot of time to find on the table, but despite gaining 4 tenths, we only go up to P9, and by the end of this session, we are just out of Q2 there by literally a few thousandths of a second. Nick de Vries there, the Dutchman in the AlphaTauri. By the way, I need to point that out as well. You might be quite confused because if you watched the pre-season video, you would have seen that Giotto was actually in this AlphaTauri. I had to actually reset my save quickly because there was an issue with the livery and the modding that I had for our car, so I had to reset and backtrack the save, and in doing so, the driver market was a little bit different. Every other transfer was the same, apart from AlphaTauri actually signed de Vries from Williams, and Giotto is now in the Williams car. So, a little bit of a change there. Kind of cool, because de Vries, I think, is the better driver in the game, so it might make for a more exciting pairing in the AlphaTauri, and for us, it's actually a shame, because he's knocked us out, because we're so close. That was so fine. So, you can see, once again, it's going to be a very competitive season. You've got Leclerc, Norris there in P2, then you've got the Mercedes cars, Giovinazzi, Ocon, the Red Bulls looking a bit slower, but Albon's done a brilliant job in the Racing Point to get up into P8, whereas his teammate, Lance Stroll, the man who won 3 races last season, is out in P14 below Hamilton, who's out in P13. So, I really can't call it. We're going to have to just basically see how it goes in these first few races to see the true on-track pecking order, forgetting about the R&D chart. But to be fair, for us, P11 might be kind of good. 3 choice of tyres, you never know. Let's have a look at the strategy when we go to the grid and see how things shape up.
Welcome to the 2020 Formula One World Championship. Here we are at the first race in what should be another thrilling season. I think the action this year will be very close, but as always with F1, you can never be too sure. Anyway, let's get started. Formula One returns to the desert today on this exceptional 3.36 mile circuit. 15 corners provide plenty of overtaking opportunities. It could be a strategic race, this one, with Sakir notorious for eating up the rear tyres. Watch out for drivers managing their rubber at some points during the Grand Prix. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's race. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he starts from pole position, with Charles Leclerc alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Norris, Gasly, Antonio Giovinazzi, and Sainz, Ocon, Ricciardo, De Vries, and Alexander Albon. The owner-driver, Bottas, Lewis Hamilton, and Stroll, Kvyat, Matsushita, Mick Schumacher, and Luca Giotto. Russell, Aitken, Latifi, and Kevin Magnussen fills the last spot on the grid. It's almost time for those 5 red lights to go out. Then let's see who can prevail today.
Right, so not too surprising to see Max Verstappen on pole position for the Mercedes team, but Gasly is up there on the second row. Also, Ferrari and McLaren looking quick in a bit of a checkerboard there in 2 and 3, so it's close, you know, it's a nice spread. Once again, it's good to see there's a nice spread. It's not like a lockout or anything like that by one team, so hopefully it continues. For us, though, like I said just before when we ended qualifying, being in P11 is actually maybe a really good place to be for a team like us where we're maybe lacking a little bit of pure pace. They're not quite on the same pace right now as the top teams as it stands. Being in P11 gives us a free choice of tyres. We can start on the mediums, which we will do, and we'll go to hards, and the plan will be to do one less stop than everyone else, and everyone in the top 10 will have to start on softs. Everyone behind me, including me, will do this strategy, medium to hard, so there'll be a load of traffic for those guys on the 2-stop, and it happens time and time again on this game, even in previous F1 games, that at Bahrain, if you're on the 1-stop, if you have enough pace and you don't lose too much time fighting cars whilst you're being overtaken, you can actually get a pretty damn good position. So I'm actually quietly confident about our chances here today. It's just about trying to keep our nose clean the opening lap. But let's get into this then. The beginning of Season 6, a new era for aarava Archer Racing, as we're now sponsored by Vodafone, we're powered by Mercedes, and we've got Lewis bloody Hamilton in the other side of the garage. Let's see what this season's going to bring for us. Let's go to round number 1 at the Bahrain Grand Prix. P11 on the grid, Albon alongside us, De Vries right ahead of Verstappen on pole. We go to 5 red lights to the Bahrain Grand Prix, and Season 6 of our My Team career mode is underway, and it's a pretty decent start for us. Very hectic in front of us as we've got so many cars being 3 wide into turn 1. We're just trying to go on the outside, trying to feed it through on the outside of Ricciardo and Albon. It's made it work, and it's 3 wide ahead. De Vries, Ocon and Gasly nearly make some contact there. De Vries has been squeezed down the AlphaTauri. Gasly and Ocon, the 2 Frenchmen, side by side ahead of us. We dive around the outside of the Dutchman, though, in the AlphaTauri. Can we get the traction down? Deploying ERS, trying our best to hang around the outside. Remember, we're on the medium tyre, so we are at a disadvantage, but you can see the downforce we have in the corner allows us to actually get the position, although under braking in the hairpin, we lose the position because this car is so bad under braking because we've had all those upgrades reset, and Sainz has hit us! And Sainz has hit us on the rear end, and in the same place we got hit, I think last season at Bahrain, or maybe season 4, Sainz has come in and whacked us on the rear end. He might have damage actually, and so he was a bit impatient there with the overtake. We obviously did kind of pull down the pants of both Red Bull cars, having overtaken them in the opening few corners, but now we go sailing round the outside there with a very nice move on Carlos Sainz in the Red Bull car and get back up into that position at least, and Ricciardo may quickly dispatch of his teammate as he's going to have to pit for damage there with a big chunk of his front wing off. And let's look at a replay and see what happened there. So Sainz just kind of very impatient, and he just misjudges when he's going down the inside there. The gap was always going to close for me, from my side on the inside there, because I was just taking a bit of a wider line to get the nose turned in, because as I said just then, because we've had the chassis reset, this car actually is very poor under braking. So although we have the downforce in the corners, under every brake zone, I can physically feel that we're having to brake earlier than I did last season. So it's something I'm having to get used to, especially on heavier fuel. And it's maybe something that Lewis Hamilton is having to get used to, because he gets overtaken there by the second Aston Martin car. So both of them, Albon and Stroll, ahead of Hamilton. And as it stands right now, Hamilton struggling in this race once again again, as we've seen him time and time again. There he is on board, just showing you we do have a yellow helmet. It doesn't look quite as yellow on the outboard for some reason, but it definitely does have a yellow hue to kind of give you that Vodafone Hamilton Mercedes feel from old and give you a bit of nostalgia there. But yeah, he's struggling, I'm struggling, and I'm even struggling even more in the corner on the curb there. Very odd mistake for me to make, so you can very much see it's a learning curve right now in this first race. I'm still not on top of this car. No amount of laps and practice will prepare you for the race, you know, the car and race conditions, and so we just about defend against Ricciardo, but we're basically getting swamped by Rick, Bobby, and Albert now in the Aston Martin car, and De Vries is actually pulling away from us at the moment in the AlphaTauri. Meanwhile, you've got Gasly P6. I believe Verstappen is still in the lead ahead of the likes of Norris, Leclerc, and Giovinazzi as Ricciardo continues to pressurize us, and he's going to try a little move down the inside. We lock up badly in the front left, and this is how you do it, Carlos Sainz. Ricciardo goes down the inside, doesn't make contact with us, and gets the move. So fair play. I just couldn't get the car slowed down. Again, having issues with the brakes of this car, but then in the corner, I have this confidence that arrives because of the downforce, but then also equally, the car's very heavy due to a lack of upgrades on the chassis front. So it's a very weird place to be, I'm not going to lie. It's hard to explain how this car felt. As I said in the intro, it's a very weird set of, you know, HQ facilities to reset the engine and chassis. You know, usually it's chassis and aero together, but to have, you know, very good aero but a poor chassis, it just feels very, very odd. It's very hard to explain, but we continue to try and make the best of it and hopefully get on top of it as the laps go on. But Albon at the moment has a great run. We're not too great through that final corner again, on to lap number 5, and he's on the inside. We go for the dive, and Albon's going to go for the further dive, and look at that, he's actually made contact with the Ricciardo. So once again, the Aston Martin cars feeling very, very punchy in the corners under braking as they were in Season 5 so many times, and we're going to take a leaf out of Albon's book. Try down the inside, but Ricciardo switchbacks us, and it's a great little squabble, but unfortunately it doesn't end up well for me, and we're unable to overtake him for P8, so we have to settle down back down for P9. We tried our best, a little bit too over-ambitious in that kind of case. Meanwhile, though, back up at the front for the race lead, this might be. Lando Norris pulls out. Verstappen goes defensive to the inside for the race lead. Meanwhile, behind, Ocon is overtaking Giovinazzi, I think. Leclerc there in the background for P3, trying to keep his nose clean, and Norris gets chopped off by Verstappen, and now might be under pressure from the man in the Ferrari, but Norris out of nowhere dives down the inside of Verstappen. Where's that come from? I did not think the McLaren was going to make a move on the Mercedes there, but he definitely tried it. Good on him, but Verstappen maintains the lead. Norris second, Leclerc third, but my oh my, that was a very late kamikaze dive from Norris, and it nearly worked in a way. And meanwhile, his teammate Ocon has indeed overtaken the other Ferrari of Giovinazzi, who's just ahead of Pierre Gasly, who's just trying to find his feet, kind of like me, obviously. Both of us obviously find ourselves in different situations this season from where we were last, so both of us trying to find our feet and still trying to settle down to this Grand Prix, kind of to be expected compared to all these other guys who are in the same car, the exact same team as they were last season, so they're all comfy and used to it. But speaking of finding our feet, on towards lap number 7, looks like we might just set a personal best lap time here in this race. So are we now finding a bit of a groove as we have DRS wide open, going through on the inside, sailing past Ricciardo, but under braking, the Red Bull is much better, and he's able to still kind of hang it through. We go a bit too deep, and Ricciardo switchbacks us once again, and look at him go right around the outside. Ricciardo has completely done me on the outside. We go to the inside, go to the outside, trying to dance our way around and hustle and harry the Australian in the Red Bull car, and now finally, can we finally get this position? I think we can, and we're up into P8. Thank God for that. We finally got it done, but my word, that's frustrating. This car is a handful under braking. Literally, I never know where to brake with this thing right now. I think it's going to take a few races, and definitely those brake upgrades coming back onto the car to kind of have that same sort of magic we had under braking so many times. You know, that was a big way we're overtaking cars, was under braking, darting to the apex, and now we've got a car out there. Oh, the Haas and Williams are parked up at turn 1. Schumacher there, that is Mick Schumacher, parked up, T-boning a Williams car, and the full course safety car is called out because of it. Not surprised, it's a very bad place to park up there, obviously. Very open, very susceptible to another car coming in and crashing into it. So we've now got a full course safety car. This has just changed the entire race. And this actually might be quite horrendous for us, because the entire point of our strategy is doing one less stop here. But now it's too early in the race to not make a pit stop here, because if I stay out, I'm going to have track position on mediums, but I'll have to pit again for a set of hard tyres. So my engineers recommended going to softs and going to mediums. I'm going to switch that. I'm going to pit onto another set of mediums and try and save the soft compound for the very end. Low fuel, do what we've done time and time again in previous races, previous seasons, where we've just been so rapid at the end on lower fuel on the freshest compound attire compared to every other AI out there. But I don't know what on earth everyone else is going to do, and I don't know what this means now for our strategy, where we're going to be in the race pecking order, because that was a big part of our entire strategy, was gaining an advantage by doing one less stop. But now we're going on to a 2-stop like everyone else. So this may have just turned into a very difficult race for us in a sense, because we're going to pit now under the safety car, and we're going to come out, I think around P10 this is, pretty much where we kind of were before we had a few people making their pit stops. And it's not just me that got affected by this, because a few people had already made their stop off soft tyres. I think Verstappen, Norris, Leclerc, so they may get caught out. And now Lewis Hamilton is out of the Bahrain Grand Prix. There he is, parked up on the left. He was doing pretty poorly anyway in this race, but you cannot be serious. Yet again, for a 4th season in a row, it looks like Lewis Hamilton is just cursed now in our career mode, and he's out with a mechanical issue, engine failure, whatever it was, and he's out. So there we have it. We are literally only one car now in this race, and to be honest, I think we should get used to this, because this may be a pattern for the entire season. I'm not gonna lie, guys. Wow, I really thought he would at least make it to the end of this race, but wow, the bad luck just continues for Hamilton, even in a different team, even away from the silver arrows. Maybe it's the silver car, I don't know, maybe we've cursed him in that kind of regard, I don't know, but he's out of this Grand Prix. So it's just us now flying the flag for our team, and we're now looking at this restart, and I'm very confused and kind of wondering where we're going to filter out. Where is everyone going to filter out? Because we've got a few people that didn't actually pit under the safety car, I think including both AlphaTauris did not pit, and then you've got a few people that lost out in the pit stops because they pit just before the safety car, and those include, I think, Verstappen, who now is no longer in the race lead, be it on track or even when other people make pit stops. So it's going to be a very intriguing second part, or remaining 2/3 of this race. So we're very early still in this Grand Prix, of course. So we're now focusing on the restart, then on towards lap 11, trying to get the best exit we can. The tyres a little bit cold, so trying to heat them up as well, but trying to gauge this restart. Very awkward, as Ocon is the one that leads it away, and it's a bit awkward there for me on the accelerator as we catch De Vries napping a little bit. Russell behind me a little bit close for comfort, but we go through to the inside, and De Vries, we just about narrowly dodged Lando Norris, and we follow De Vries in for the massive dive bomb. We've gone around the outside of Leclerc. What is going on here in this race right now, as we've got buckets of pace now versus the McLaren and the Ferrari, and we've overtaken Norris and Leclerc, the two men that were fighting for P1 earlier on in the race, and now Norris trying to get an overtake done on Leclerc down the inside. He goes around the outside of the left-hander, and it's a fantastic overtake by Norris to get the move on the Ferrari in that S section there. What an overtake. But what an overtake from myself and De Vries as well. Very, very punchy on the restart into turn 1. Kind of just basically followed him through, but, you know, just narrowly kind of avoiding Norris on the rear end it was in the brake zone. So kind of just lucky to be in one piece, basically. But just, you know, got the move done on Leclerc. Very surprised, but here we are then, splitting the two Ferraris and the McLaren of Norris up ahead on the road. You've got Ocon in the lead. Second place is Bottas. Like I said, the two AlphaTauris are yet to pit in this Grand Prix, so Bottas out of place in second place. Bit of a bottleneck for third place man Pierre Gasly now, and Verstappen in P4 as Gasly goes down the inside. The Frenchman leading the two Mercedes cars right now on track, trying his best to force his way through in the last corner. Couldn't quite do it, so he has to try and out-drag Bottas down the straight. Of course, Bottas used to be in that silver arrow, and now Verstappen is the one overtaking, so both the Mercedes getting past Bottas in the AlphaTauri car, and now even De Vries might join the party. So at the moment, it's Ocon in the lead. Then you've got two Mercedes cars, two AlphaTauris, Giovinazzi, and then myself. So we've come to join the party all of a sudden. And here goes Giovinazzi now, going for the double move maybe on De Vries and Bottas. We try and follow Giovinazzi through, practically pushing the Ferrari man through on the right-hander. We get the job done on the Dutchman. Now can we overtake Bottas maybe on the very next lap, maybe onto lap number 13. Can't quite do it in sector 2, I don't think. So we're going to have to wait until the last corner corner, get that exit going, deploying ERS. DRS not available quite yet. It is now on this next lap, of course, the second lap after this safety car has come in, but we go down the inside of the fin, nice and easy on the braking, squeeze him out, and somehow, we've actually found ourselves in P5. So I was quite doom and gloom about our chances in this race because I thought that safety car ruined everything, but we've somehow come out in P5. Now I've got two rather slow AlphaTauris who are yet to pit in this race. That's why they're so slow. They're going to be a nice blockade for us to stop Norris and Leclerc coming to chase after us. So we actually might be in a very good yet boring no man's land position right now for this second phase of this Grand Prix. Back looking at the leaders though, Ocon now dominating this race. He's broken away, clear of second place Gasly, who's now under pressure from his new teammate Verstappen, and Verstappen is sailing past and up into P2. He's on the soft compound tyre though, as Gasly's on the mediums as well as myself, of course, Giovinazzi on the soft. So we've got a bit of a difference of tyre strategy, and so we're going to be on a different tyre compound, a lot of us, to each other in the last stint. So that's going to be quite important. So although Verstappen's got past Gasly here, I wouldn't be surprised if Gasly comes back at him on a set of soft compound tyres in that last stint, very much like I want to try and do. Meanwhile, further back down the road, we've got the Alpine car. We haven't seen too much of the brand new Alpine car for this season, ahead of Ricciardo, the two Red Bull cars having a woeful race, and eventually now Ocon comes in, Verstappen's in, those two are on soft compound tyres, so they're in for that final pit stop, and so Pierre Gasly leads this Grand Prix, and quite funny enough, it's actually myself in second place, so Gasly and myself are in a 1-2 yet again in a Grand Prix now. It's a different season though, we're both in two different Mercedes-powered cars now, very two different looking cars, but it's 1-2 right now for myself and Gasly, quite nice actually to see. And then behind is Norris and Leclerc, who have now obviously got some clean air as the two AlphaTauris have also come in. So now I wouldn't be surprised if Norris and Leclerc get the foot down and try to bridge the gap to me as we continue to try and stretch this stint as much as we can. But behind us, Ocon will still have the net race lead, and then the two Mercedes cars are still squabbling now on this final stint. And like I said, Gasly might just come back at Verstappen, and he's going to. Verstappen very defensive though, but Gasly's giving up a real good fight. His first race for the Silver Arrows, and he's into turn one, and he's up into second place effectively on the road. And Verstappen, if you notice, he's on hard tyres, so he actually might struggle a lot. I don't know why Mercedes would put him onto hards. He could have easily done mediums and gone to the end for some reason. Meanwhile, back to our POV, lap 21, we've stretched this stint as much as we possibly can to now come in, and now we've got 8 banzai quick laps on the soft compound tyre. We did lose a bit of time though on those last few laps, so we might be behind a few cars that we were ahead of earlier, but the difference is I think we're literally the only man, or one of the very few men on circuit right now, strapping on a set of red wall soft tyres, low fuel. Let's see what we can do with this car if we really give it the full beans, as we now come out in P8 it is, behind De Vries, Norris, Leclerc, Giovinazzi, Verstappen, but obviously, we've got the pace advantage. All of them are on mediums, or in the case of Verstappen, he's on hard tyres. And I'm quietly confident, especially if those guys are fighting each other. We saw how close the two Mercs were, and especially also Norris and Leclerc were pretty much attached to the hip this entire race. If they're squabbling and we're in free air, we're definitely going to catch them, and we're already on the back of De Vries on this outlap, and he's squirming on the rear end. We send it down the inside on the right-hander, and despite losing some time having to overtake him and sit behind him, we've still gone purple in that second sector, and the gap ahead of us is only 2.4, and if you consider how quick we're going, and also in a second when Norris catches up to Leclerc, he's going to get held up by that train, and so by the time we get to lap 25, we've set the fast lap of the Grand Prix. Now we set a red lap time though, because we're within 1 second of Norris, and on this game, we've seen it time and time again in previous career mode seasons. When you're in clean air, you can go so quickly, but just like in real life, once you get within 1 second, you start to lose that time, you start to get in the dirty air, and you're all going as slow as each other. And so here we are, lap 26, another red lap time, but we're going to go down the inside of Norris to try and get this move. We have to get this done. We're much quicker than these guys in theory. Leclerc slow as he gets squeezed up by Giovinazzi, and we're around the outside of the Ferrari. We've got up into P5. It's the second time we've done that to Leclerc today in today's race, and now we're tucked up behind Giovinazzi, but Gio squeezing Leclerc out really helped us then. So it's a double pass in the span of 2 corners, and we're up into P5. Could it be any more? We're on now towards the last last lap of the Grand Prix, stuck behind the dirty of Giovinazzi. He's looking to maybe overtake Verstappen himself, maybe, but I reckon we've got one more overtake in this. We just need to catch Gio or Verstappen napping either way, because if Giovinazzi goes to overtake Verstappen, we can try and follow him through and overtake him as well. But at the moment, it's Giovinazzi that's under pressure. He locked up into turn 1, and he's going defensive here with DRS open. He's still going to the right-hand side to defend the position. We're going to try and go around the outside there. Easy does it. Try and feather the throttle and try and find the grip. Yes, we've done it. How have we done that? Gio loses the back end mid-corner, and we've overtaken him on the last lap of the Bahrain Grand Prix to get up into P4. Although, just like we've done so many times before, we've gone too deep into the hairpin. A lack of braking power from our new car in Season 6, and so Gio is pressurizing us. And again, in the same left-hander, like the Red Bulls did, he's down the inside, and we're now neck and neck. The rear end squirms, and it's a drag race, but he's got DRS, unfortunately. We do not. We squeeze him, but he's through on the left-hand side. We're going to be neck and neck up the hill, side by side, wheel to wheel, literally, as our front left tyre bangs his front right. But we're going to squeeze him out and maintain the P4, and he's going to have to look in his mirrors because Leclerc and Norris are right there, right under his gearbox. But it's going to be Esteban Ocon, the Frenchman in the McLaren, that will win the first race of Season 6 here today. It's going to be Gasly and his new team at Mercedes in second place. Verstappen finishes the podium, but we come home in a very, very good P4 from P11 on the grids. I thought the race may have been out. I thought we may have been out of the race with the safety car, but the strategy to switch onto soft tyres at the end was a lightning one, and boy oh boy did we make the most of it.
That's it for another spectacular Grand Prix here in Bahrain, and a real champion's drive to take the win. What do you think it was, Ant, that gave them the edge over the competition today?
Without a doubt, the safety car changed everything today. The key to their success was keeping calm and reacting to the situation quickly. We've seen teams in the past throw away wins because they were too hesitant, but here they were decisive, and that's allowed them to take the advantage.
As the winners make their way up to the podium, one can only imagine the celebrations that will take place at McLaren tonight. Congratulations to everyone on the team, securing the win and proving they're a force to be reckoned with out on the track.
Well, there we go. Ocon kind of stole the entire race because he stayed out, of course, before the safety car came out, and he was able to pit under the safety car, and that's how he effectively got the race lead. And as soon as he got it, he kept it. We've seen time and time again the McLarens, once they get in the lead, they are very hard to overtake because they're so good in a straight line. But really good race from our former teammate Gasly. I mean, I'm really happy to actually see him do well because obviously compared to other games, other series, we never had really any bad blood with Gasly in our time together in seasons 4 and 5. So I was kind of worried he was going to get trounced by Verstappen, but he took the fight to him and he got second place. Fair play to him. And Verstappen comes home still for P3. We're so close. A few more laps. We may have even got a podium there because we're so quick on those softs compared to everyone else, especially Verstappen. He was on hard tyres, but it is what it is. In 4th place, I'm still so happy with that. But with Hamilton DNFing, we're P4 in the championship. Already, you're seeing the difference of not having a second car. Even finishing in P7 or 8 would have helped me to gain a few more points here in the constructors. So if it is going to be another season where Hamilton is so unlucky and so bad, this really is going to be a massive challenge, like a very unique and different one to one we've had before, but a challenge nonetheless. But that was a very entertaining race, so much action, and once again it looks like the field spread and the cars are all very close together, which is great news for us and great news for you guys to watch this series at home. So if you did enjoy it, then be sure to smash that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.